Welcome to the boss level!
Give me the kitty cat bracelet!
It'd be more fun to kill you.
Let them fight.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Open Yawn, the podcast where we shall attempt to bore you with our opinions. I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Emmett.
And welcome to what I'd like to call the April Action Movie Blitz.
Blitz!
It is indeed the month of April, and there just so happen to be 3 action films of the high-octane variety that we, being the most manly of men, figured, why not talk about them? But hey, Emmett, movies!
Movies!
It's actually starting to feel a little bit normal, like being able to go out, go to the theater, see some movies.
It's been so long.
But then the nice thing is, if you're not so inclined to make it out to the theater, then pretty soon here, all 3 of these options will be available to either stream for free or rent digitally. So that works too.
Yeah.
And so the 3 films that we are choosing to talk about today are Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk, Boss Level, starring Frank Grillo, and just a tiny little indie feature, you might have heard of it, Godzilla vs. Kong. Alright, so let's get started then. Might as well start off with the first of these films we did see, Nobody.
I used to work for some very dangerous people.
They came after my family.
They stole my kitty cat bracelet.
And you don't do that.
Yeah, so when I first see the trailer for this film, I see from the producer of John Wick, from the writer of John Wick, and starring Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul in a John Wick role. And I'm like, really? And I watched the trailer and I'm like, well, that looks good.
Basically. Yeah, it's surprising, but it works very well.
Who would have ever thought, like, he's one of the last people I would have predicted that would have ever basically even showed up in an action movie, let alone be the star of an action movie.
And I think it works well because he's supposed to be set up as the normal every guy who has a dark secret. So
he's nobody.
He's nobody. Yeah, that's the gimmick of the movie. So he can pull off the everyman persona, and then the action works really well.
But it's really funny because you have Saul Goodman in a role that's essentially Walter White meets Mike from Breaking Bad, if you combine those 2 characters.
Kind of.
So,
Because, I was guessing this maybe is what you mean by comparing him to Walter, that I did feel like he asked for it a little bit more than John Wick.
Oh, I'd agree.
Like, he went out looking for trouble.
See, the difference between this and John Wick was a straight up revenge movie. You do not kill a man's puppy. And this was more of a guy yearning to get back into the saddle, to get back to what he's good at.
But I did like the little subversion of he didn't really get to do quite what he wanted to do.
See, yeah.
I thought that was a good character moment.
Any good action movie can't just give it to you completely straight. You need to have some outside variables work their way in, that things don't always go how they were supposed to. To me, that's the best kind of action. And one of the strongest points of this movie.
That he he feels a little gypped already than when he meets the thugs that he does beat up. So even though it felt a little bit more random when he does get into the action, I did like that it had kind of a build up.
And again, those kinds of choices helped just make it more than just, oh, it's John Wick, but without Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
That, as a whole, this film isn't anything new or groundbreaking. Like, since it's from the same writer as John Wick, that you can tell this is apparently just what he's good at.
Yeah.
That
It's just kind of John Wick light.
But I would not say that in terms of the action. That I found that the action delivered in about every aspect that you would expect from a John Wick film.
Had the Home Alone style third act type sequence, that those types of
Those are
setting
always
up booby
entertaining.
traps and impromptu weapons are always fun.
Yeah, they are always fun. I felt like this movie was able to pull that off better than most who attempt that. I still haven't seen that idea put to perfection of like a straight up action movie version or an R-rated version of the Home Alone. Just when you compare like that specific scene to Home Alone, just that works so well because of the time it takes to set that up. You watch Kevin put up the traps, and the climax of this movie was less than 10 minutes. And then how long is the climax of Home Alone? It feels like it goes on forever. But I would like to note the scene that comes directly before the climax, which I did think the climax was very enjoyable. But if we're going to talk about the highlight action scene, that would be the heartbreaker car chase scene that like directly ties into the final climactic beat. And maybe that's why that like didn't quite hit as hard as it could have been.
Yeah.
Because that car chase, I'm going to say right now, to me, I feel like that's going to potentially be one of the definitive action scenes of the 2020s.
Yeah.
Because like that was action movie perfection for me. Like, it was the most thrilling I've felt in the theater in a long time. If I hadn't eaten all of my popcorn, I would have been eating all of my popcorn.
Yeah.
But
and noting that the actual climax is pretty short, this movie is very well paced.
Never a dull moment.
You walked out of the theater and was like, wait, that was as short as it was? That didn't feel short.
Yeah,
They
it's
used
only
their
like
time
90
very
minutes or
well.
so. It felt like I got 2 hours worth. Yeah, so an exceptionally simple premise that more than delivers on the action. That's really about it with that one. That Bob Odenkirk kicks sufficient amount of butt. If you like the John Wick series, I don't see you being disappointed here. I just thought it was a lot of fun.
And I've made this comment to you before. But if Better Call Saul is wrapping up and Bob Odenkirk is looking to make some more action rounds, and the Fallout show is probably going to be hiring soon, you wouldn't make a bad lead. Like, even though I would want Fallout to be very different in its own thing, it makes sense to have a type of Rick-type character who starts out in Everyman and gets more ruthless as it goes, and I think Bob Odenkirk would suit that very well.
All right, I'll have to take your word for it then. Okay, now that you say that, can we get Andrew Lincoln his own John Wick type series?
Oh, that would rock.
Because after Walking Dead, he hasn't really been in that much, and just Rick is one of the all-time just best characters for me. Rick's the best. But yeah, if it's not playing in a theater near you, Nobody will be hitting the digital markets on April 16th. So I would recommend it either way. Or if you're not quite feeling taking a trip to the theater and not really wanting to shell out an extra 15, 20 bucks, who knows how much it is for a digital rental, Boss Level is currently on Hulu.
I used to complain that every day felt the same, and now every day is the same. Hey, Jake. I have died 144 times, and every day ends like this. But it doesn't matter. Not when you've lost everything you've loved.
Starring Frank Grillo, probably best known for playing Crossbones in the Captain America sequels. And to me was another element that really helps make Warrior as great as it is.
Yeah.
That ensemble cast. He's really
Yeah.
good in that also. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say it right now. Another action movie that I would pretty highly recommend if you're looking for something fun to watch. Okay, so Nobody seems to be the like higher profile release. I've seen all kinds of trailers on YouTube and whatnot. I forget how I even wandered upon Boss Level and then saw that it was getting pretty decent reviews, and I'm like, okay, that sounds fun.
That's too bad. That it's not really being advertised much.
Or talked about that much. Like after it dropped, I never really saw any chatter for it, especially compared to Nobody. But so yeah, this is yet another time loop movie. But what this film is able to understand is that it cleverly jumps past any repetition that might come with that premise, and just basically from the get-go says, hey, you know how video games work? This is not a video game movie. It has nothing to do with video games, but it lets you know right off the bat that this world that the character is in is basically just going to play out like a video game.
Yeah.
That
he has his mission, and if he can't beat it, then he resets.
I could get it right, because today I have multiple chances.
And dies very grisly.
He has to live every day over and over, battling basically this army of very memorable hitmen. Like, that's another thing this movie does well, that if you're going to replay the same events over and over and over, you have to have all of these outside variables that are very memorable and stand out from each other. So then whatever direction he takes, it's very simple. Every morning he just has to wake up, get from his apartment to another side of town, while also trying to figure out what the heck is going on at the same time and learning as he goes, while just fighting off this mob of random hitmen who all have very distinct looks and personalities and fighting styles.
Yeah.
Which also comes into play later. Yeah, like, same as Nobody, this movie's a blast. It's really fun.
Yeah. At first, I was a little bit worried about the constant narration.
I agree, yes.
But it did grow on me. Mostly because I think Frank Grillo was actually more charismatic than I was expecting. Because I like him. I was expecting good things, but I guess I was still thinking of it more as like a stock action, I guess like Jason Statham type role. But I was surprised by how well he carried a lot of the humor and the heart when he needed to.
Okay, I'm not surprised that he pulled it off. If anything, I'm surprised that that's what the movie consisted of. Because I've basically just been waiting for something to let him get his due.
Yeah, basically.
And this proved he's a better actor than someone like Statham.
Very much, yeah.
So often he gets thrown in direct-to-DVD garbage roles where I avoid those movies like the plague, but I've watched reviews for them, and the consensus is always, this movie sucks Frank Grillo's not bad though. Like he's a good sport, and I've seen clips from interviews where people ask him, "So you've been in a couple like less than standout movies lately?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know, I gotta pay the bills. It's just something I had to do for now, and hopefully something better will come along." He seems like a really down to earth guy, so I hope this movie kind of kickstarts. Hey, let's get him bigger things to do.
Yeah, because it really showcases how well he'd pull off being a regular leading man.
He's really great in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that narration when it started, yeah, I was like, I'm not sure about this, but the movie quickly established why you needed the narration, because then I started imagining if the narration wasn't there. I do think you could have gotten away without it in the very first scene. Like if you would have started the movie, let the action scene play out exactly as it did without the narration, and then once he resets for the first time, then okay, so you're probably wondering what just happened,
Kind of like a Peter B. Parker.
Yeah, right.
Like you see him go through crap first, and then it's like, okay, here's who I am.
Okay, see, among our personal lives, we often bring up what's a good narration, what's a bad narration. Somehow I completely forgot about Spider-Verse. Like that has to be like the epitome of how you do not just a narration, but also repetition too, and keep it fresh every single time. Yeah, so Frank Grillo's mission is to take down the maniacal Mel Gibson. Yet again, 2 straight to digital or streaming movies now, kind of lower rent action movies we've reviewed on this channel starring Mel Gibson. And once again, the movies are really good and Mel Gibson's really good too.
Yeah, like he kind of knows what role it is, that it's supposed to just be like the maniacal armchair bad guy. And so he knows how to ham it up in just the right way so that he's entertaining.
Like he knows, and then again, credit to the movie. Like I found his expected bad guy monologues to kind of be poetry. Like
kind of.
We've seen this type of role a million times, so I kind of expect the same amount of stock dialogue, and then I'm watching it play out, and I'm like, these lines aren't badly written. Actually, they kind of flow. Actually, they're kind of great. Like,
yeah.
Again, like it kind of tricks you into thinking you're watching some cheap, low rent action movie, and to some extent you are, because like production value wise, like the CGI effects aren't great, but. Kind of like Fat Man too, like it understands what kind of movie it is and what kind of budget it has, so it cleverly kind of writes itself around those problems.
Yeah.
That by selling you, just think of it as a video game. Then when you see effects that are basically straight out of a video game, then you're okay with it. Because that's the world that the movie sold you on.
And I just realized now that, the video game gimmick wasn't entirely out of place, because...
again, clever writing. They tie it into the actual story.
Yeah, that I really liked all the stuff with him and his son, who's Frank Grillo's real son.
And that's great. And you told me that, and that surprised me, but then I was glad at the same time that as far as child actors go, I did not think he was doing a bad job at all. So then I'm like, okay, that makes sense why he appears to be doing a good job, because he's just hanging out with his dad. And I mean, for an entire scene, he just gets to have fun and play video games with his actual dad.
Yeah.
And that's nice. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, like as the movie was going on, at first I thought like, and it's still like a nitpick that whenever it slows down from the action, maybe those scenes could have been trimmed or edited just to be a little faster. But like by the time you get to stuff near the end where he's interacting with his son, those slower character-driven moments were so surprisingly poignant
Yeah.
that then I appreciated them for that.
Yeah, this movie is very well balanced.
Very, yeah.
That it's not just brainless action. It has quite a bit of character work too.
But then it more than delivers on the action as
Yeah.
well. That
Just entertainment through the roof.
both this and Nobody are ridiculously violent movies.
Yeah, that's true.
And I probably had too much fun watching them. Boy, like I am going to keep it as vague as possible, but there's this scene that involves trying to find a tracking device in a bathroom that was one of the most squeamishly hilarious things I've seen.
Oh, and because it touches on a certain nerve with you. One of your fears.
Yeah, see, that too, but it's so, like, it's just clever. It's like, I haven't seen anything quite like that. I'll give you guys props. Like, that's a really, like, out there idea. And again, they find, how in the year 2021 do you find more than enough new, fresh directions to take the time loop premise?
Yeah.
And they also do like some similar things that you're used to seeing in something like Groundhog Day, but they do their own spin on them. Like, how can we do something like that in this world, in this particular movie? And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that one's on Hulu. If that sounds like your thing, that's a recommendation from me.
And me as well.
Awesome. So then, that brings us to movie 3, the grand finale, the Clash of the Titans, Godzilla vs. Kong.
It's Godzilla.
Hear the roar.
Currently in theaters and streaming concurrently on HBO Max. The Bomax. So yeah, the culmination of the current monster verse. Emmett, tell me, how would you rank the previous MonsterVerse movies?
Monsterverse movies.
Which consist of 2014's Godzilla, 2017's Kong Skull Island, and 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Ranking. I guess I'd probably put Kong Skull Island first, just because it's probably the most entertaining for me personally. Like, I do like the 2014 Godzilla, but it does get a little old after a while.
It drags a little bit.
And why'd you go and kill off Bryan Cranston?
Everyone says it. We say it too. That doesn't make any sense.
That like the rest of it is just watching the military do military stuff, and it's like.
And the problem is not the most interesting military stuff.
Yeah.
Like if it was super creative and tense and on the edge of your seat.
If you had all of your logic nailed down.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of
I
things.
have no problem with that if that's what the movie was.
Yeah. Like, if they had like a really stellar idea of, okay, what would be the actual most realistic way for people to try and take down a skyscraper-sized monster.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting to problem solve.
And they don't really do that.
But it's still good.
And they're afraid to show you the monsters.
Yeah. Which, thankfully, each movie gets less and less afraid of showing you the monsters. Except King of the Monsters.
They were not afraid. See, like, that's one of the problems I had with 2014. And then King of the Monsters was being sold as, hey, way more monsters. Yeah. And, like, yeah, that was right, but it didn't help things.
Like, counting it in my head, which I admit is probably not the most accurate thing.
Yeah. So
Godzilla still
here's the
didn't get
problem.
any more screen time than in the first movie.
More monsters, less Godzilla.
Yeah, that he still only
Does
got
that
like
fix it?
I forget what it was, like just 7 minutes of screen time or something like
You
that.
told me that after you saw it, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then there's the fact that this movie led you to mentally count out the screen time of its lead character, so that
shows
probably,
how boring it was.
Yeah, that probably means it wasn't all that interesting.
That
to begin with.
I found solace in counting seconds. So many boring human subplots.
But not just that. Like King of the Monsters, I didn't find the monster action like entertaining to watch. To me, it was the same problem with the DC Snyder movies. Like the climax of that was interchangeable with them fighting Doomsday.
Yeah, it
in
develops
bat suits.
into atomic burps.
Yeah, when you're just watching these giant balls of energy explode and implode, and just it's not fun to look at.
It's like
it's all murky and hazy and gross.
It's like the modern equivalent of the, what was that, like 2002, 3 Hulk?
Whoa! Okay, like not that bad because I still have no idea what was going on there.
Not that bad, but like the modern equivalent.
I can understand what they're doing. I just don't like looking at it.
Oh, look, weird bubbles. Why is Hulk fighting a weird bubble?
Yeah, weird bubble problems, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now with Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
We've got this one from Adam Wingard. His last movie that he directed is what I would consider one of the most enjoyable, so bad it's good movies of the last few years. Death Note on Netflix.
It's quite a tale.
Like, I understand why fans would absolutely despise this. I have no familiarity with the source material because anime doesn't interest me. But yeah, I'm not going to go out on any kind of limb to try to convince you that Death Note is high art. But as entertainment, it's a lot of fun. Like, see, the interesting thing about that one, like, it's really stupid, but what keeps me going back to it is that it does certain things so well. Like, it has a great sense of style.
Yeah.
It's very well shot. The lighting choices are great. And then when it comes to the monster of that movie, Willem Dafoe, that character is badass. So then when you get to Godzilla vs. Kong, it's very well shot. The lighting is very pleasing to look at. And when you're focusing on the monsters are very badass.
Yeah, this does solve some of the problems of its predecessors actually by cutting down the runtime. At first I was worried about that, but it just means that, no, we don't have time to get bored. We don't have time for all the stupidity. Like, give some time for the boring human subplots and then just jump straight into all the monster action in the second half.
And yeah, it's funny, for as short as it is, and with as much monster action as it does contain, I was still surprised that there are still a lot of human subplots.
Yeah, they yeah.
Why do you need so many human subplots?
Like, again, they were, by default, the less boring of the Godzilla films, at least.
Yeah. It suffers from major Amazing Spider-Man movies syndrome, where all of the investigation doesn't make any sense, and if anyone wants to break into a facility, they can just break into a facility's security crap.
Hollywood logic writing. See, when it comes to the human subplots, inherently you can only suspend your disbelief so far, but then when you're watching a giant monkey punch a giant lizard and insane things are happening, you don't care. Because it's a giant monkey punching a giant lizard, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah. All of the action really pops.
Yeah, the thing this movie has going for it, that, and I've got to give Adam Wingard props, that there are, like, insanely creative camera choices and angles and just the general setup and layout of the fights in general are very well done.
Yeah. And it's funny how I guess just it all comes down to if you are good at choreography or not. But like
Oh man,
with King of the
fight
Monsters
choreography in action.
and the Snyder Cut, like they end up boring because it's all just punchy, bammy, bammy, and like I said with the Snyder Cut, like if you're setting up a big bad villain, what's gonna be new? They're just gonna punch him harder again. But then yeah, for some reason the fights always feel somewhat fresh in this one. Like you can tell that Godzilla fights differently than Kong does, and they're always in
love that.
slightly different circumstances, using their surroundings. So yeah, it feels fresh. It's like, yeah, they are technically just punchy, bammy, bammy, but they're well done. Like they don't feel like they just fade into oblivion.
See, okay, directly after watching the Snyder Cut, we watched 3 action movies in a row that the one thing first and foremost that they excel at is the action.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how you do it, guys. Like, any of these 3 movies, like, take your pick. Like, you're gonna get your action fix.
Yeah.
Just sitting there in the theater, I just want to lift my hands and yell to the heavens, set pieces! This is how you do giant blockbuster action set pieces. You set the stage. You know the general geography. You know where the ships are and where Kong is and where Godzilla's trying to get to and all that stuff. And you somehow inject personality and character into these monsters that don't speak a word of dialogue.
Yeah.
But then they're easily the best characters in the movie.
Yeah, because whenever I was getting kind of tired of the human characters trying to lure Kong or follow Kong or doing whatever the heck they were doing with Kong, then I was always just like, man, I feel bad for Kong. He's just being kind of put through a lot.
And was it just me, or were there a few shots here and there, like scattered throughout the movie, like most of the time concerning Godzilla, but there were a couple scenes with Kong as well where whatever they did with the CG, I was like, this is the closest we've ever gotten to essentially seeing a man in a costume come to life.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell that they were trying hard to pay homage to the roots of these characters. But, like, before this movie, like, I could never really wrap my brain around how do you make that look cool. Like, I know that was also what Del Toro was trying to do with the monsters in Pacific Rim as well. But that was more, like, design-wise. Make them look like their dimensions, that there could be a man in a suit controlling them, sort
and
of.
like
but,
the camera angles, trying to choose more natural, realistic places to shoot it.
but like here, like especially certain close-ups you get with Godzilla, like it looked like you took just a Godzilla costume and then suddenly it's not a lifeless costume that can't express any emotion. Like now it's a living, breathing creature and what that would look like. And I found that fascinating because it looked really good.
Yeah, and I could tell that that's what all the other movies were going for. Like the moment I saw Kong and Godzilla's designs, I was like, yeah, they are trying to go for more of the bipedal walking around the city. Dun, 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 dun. Look. But yeah, this one definitely pops the most.
And Godzilla is easily the best he's ever been in this movie because I always like really dug his design since the 2014 one, but like they always seemed afraid to linger on Godzilla. That they let him do cool stuff, but he always felt like, oh look, a monster, and then here it's like, no, that is Godzilla. That is a character.
Yeah.
Like the effects really pop too. But yeah, then at the same time, like I still really liked Kong, but I felt like the effects on him were possibly a downgrade from Skull Island. Again, like never disappointed me, but especially since just how many movies have we gotten with great ape effects for one, so there's a lot more to compare it to. And especially since I really have a soft spot for Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah.
That like anytime they focus on him or Skull Island stuff or him fighting other monsters, like I kept getting flashbacks to the T-Rex rumble in Kong and how excellent that scene is, and it's like, this is good, but it can't be better.
Yeah.
But it's still always entertaining with his stuff. But yeah. But then we get to the third act of this movie, and like I told you walking out of the theater, my reaction to this movie was basically that Leo gift from Django Unchained. You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. Like the second that Hong Kong battle started, like basically all the way to the end, like I hear reviewers talk like this all the time, and I always think it's so pretentious, but I was just a little kid. I was just sitting there with a big old smile on my face. I was giddy as a schoolboy. Just like it's so entertaining. And the effects in the Hong Kong sequence are easily the best of the entire movie. Like I have no qualms CGI wise in that scene. Like that looked fantastic, and especially when you have a direct comparison with Pacific Rim that also has a wonderful monster action scene set in Hong Kong that still to this day looks amazing, but how those scenes can coexist as both being some of the best blockbuster action while not feeling derivative of each other either.
Yeah. Like they're definitely unique, but still of the same
it
heart.
always felt like this movie was doing its own thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And anyone who cares would know already, but when they get to at the boss level of this movie, like it's everything I need.
Yeah. In the beginning, the very beginning, with the credits and the pictures and the music and the stuff.
Oh yeah.
When they were setting up like the you were making Incredibles jokes when they're setting up all the defeated. This Titan was defeated. This Titan was defeated. Part of me was like, okay, not that like, even though King of the Monsters wasn't great, I kind of wish we had gotten more movies building up to this, because I would have liked to have seen it actually be like a full-blown tournament where all of the monsters were actually vying for a position, so you had multiple movies to see, okay, here is all the monsters that Godzilla's defeated, now here are all the monsters that Kong's defeated, now they're gonna pit together, or pit against each other.
Yeah.
That would have been nice to see.
Or again, like this movie didn't have to be the shortest movie in the series. If you wanted to start it out with, at the very least, a half hour of, like, we kept pitching before we even saw trailers for the movie, and then I'm still confused. This was sitting there right on the table. You guys had set this up, that the last movie, King of the Monsters, ended with Godzilla being the king of the monsters.
And there
He's
being a
the king
bunch of monsters
of the
that were
monsters!
bowing down to him.
Yeah, like he has an entire army of monsters. And so we were like, okay, so if Kong wants to fight Godzilla, but to get to him, he has to go through all of his cronies first, which are all very uniquely designed monsters that we didn't get to see a whole lot of in that movie. So now pitting them against this brand new opponent and having a bunch of like tag team fights against this Mega Titan Kong, like that would be amazing. And then no, these monsters just cease to exist
anymore. Which is why, like, part of me was hoping if they must bring in Mechagodzilla, like have him pop up in the. Well, we all knew.
We see with us always being in the know on the internet, they spoiled that years ago.
Yeah.
A giant metal monster.
My brain thought was maybe have Mechagodzilla be in the opening, that humans want to kill off all the monsters, so Mechagodzilla shows up and murders several of the monsters, and that's what ticks off Godzilla and makes him just give up on humanity and want to kill everybody.
Okay.
And then that's why they recruit Kong to try and stop Godzilla.
I like that. See, yeah. The problem now is after watching the movie, it's like, oh, you guys came up with like a completely different plot than what I was expecting, that doesn't include Kong wanting to fight Godzilla. It's a King Kong movie where the human scientists need Kong's help, but then there's also Godzilla who wants to track down Kong. So then the idea of, oh, Kong has to fight through all these monsters. Well, then you could have just Godzilla, hey, I'm the king now. I'm fat and lazy. I'm sitting on my throne. I'm like King Louie in Toy Story.
Toy Story?
King Louie in Jungle Book.
Toy Story?
Books? Stories?
You're going to tell a story.
Can you see? They're childhood classics. You know what I mean now.
Replace Buster in Toy Story 3 with King Louie.
What? Okay.
Or vice versa.
I guess
he's fat and lazy and orange.
Okay. So which is weirder now? Anyway. Basically, what I'm saying is that have Kong be the king that you set him up to be, and then, there's this new monster. He's out on a boat somewhere. Let's send my cronies after him. And then, oh no, my crony's dead. Fine, I'll go do this myself.
Yeah.
You know? But as is, like, it's competent. Like the plot they came up with, it's like fine, sure. Like it gets the job done.
Even if you have to download energy to do it.
You won't let that go, will you? It's ridiculous. This movie is full of so many stupid things, but again, when they concern this giant monkey and this giant Godzilla, that's all we want to see. We want them to just bash it out and just make it glorious.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Which is a little funny when you compare it to the first one, which was trying really hard to be uber serious. I don't mind them wanting to make these movies more fun. Just they should have figured out that was the direction they wanted to take in the beginning.
It's kind of the DCEU again.
Man, exactly.
Oh, we want to be dark and take this seriously.
Going from Man of Steel to Aquaman.
Okay, Marvel happened, so now we need to be quippy. We need to be bright and happy. And
see, both of Warner Brothers cinematic universes. DC wants to be just like Marvel. The MonsterVerse wants to be just like Marvel.
Maybe you should do your own thing. That was what killed King of the Monsters, though. Like it was trying so hard to be dark and gritty, but then so much of the dialogue was just, no, we're funny, no, we're quippy, we're just like Marvel, we're funny.
Because like you watch the trailers for that, and that movie looked wonderful. Like I really liked the style they were going with, but for some reason that just did not translate well.
Self-importance is a destructive thing. Like we've learned that very much with Snyder Cut. And then that was kind of King of the Monsters' problem too, to some extent. Which then with Godzilla versus Kong, it just kind of completely ditches that and is like, no, we're silly. I know you're just here to see a monkey and a lizard duke it out, so nothing else really matters.
But then at the same time, if they wanted to go all the way and make the human scenes as silly as stuff in Death Note, that then that would help it all gel together then.
Yeah.
Because like the human scenes just feel like placeholder. Like we can't have the entire movie about the giant monkey and the giant lizard just be you watching the giant monkey and the giant lizard. So let's pad some of the time.
Maybe if you had some more monsters in there that you'd have to work through, then you could have more monster action.
I understand that it's really expensive to make, but that's what we want.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But again, movies like the live-action remake of Toy Story can get away with the entire movie being CGI, even when you've got giant orangutans and tigers and. I saw an opportunity. I see. But yeah, like how come things like Jungle Book can be like 99% CGI and that didn't have an enormous budget compared to most blockbusters. Like, so why can't we get more of that? But oh well.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so Emmett, rank these movies. Which one is the best? Which one reigns supreme?
Oof.
Godzilla versus Kong versus Boss Level versus Nobody.
That's hard.
If you could only recommend one of these films, which film would it be?
I also say Boss Level because if I don't recommend it, then like it's getting the less buzz around it. So
okay. That's fair.
It's the underdog I want to root for.
It's the one you would recommend people see the most, but
yeah, because under the assumption that they would have heard of the other two on their own.
Is that your answer in place of giving us your opinion, your honest opinion?
I guess.
Chicken.
Well, because I
wasn't prepared for the ranking, and if there's
if there's this comes
different-
naturally to me.
Yeah,
I'm
if
constantly ranking.
If there's
everything.
different things that I like about the movies, then sometimes it's hard for me to rank. But I guess Nobody would be probably on the top just in terms of like overall quality. It's probably the tightest production.
Yeah, it's extremely tight, and I didn't stress enough with Nobody. That movie is also extremely well shot and super stylish.
Yes.
That part of the reason the action works so well is that it's really good.
Yeah.
It's so nice to watch. But yeah, I would concur with that. The thing is, all these movies come surprisingly close. Like, if I'd have to pick a favorite, it'd be probably Nobody, but like only a hair or two above the rest. And then Boss Level and Godzilla vs. Kong are like pretty much tied. Like if I had to pick right now, it'd probably be Nobody, Godzilla, Boss Level. But that's nothing against Boss Level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For me, it's funny how often I think Rotten Tomatoes gets things wrong, and then other times they get things like perfectly right. Like right now, Nobody's sitting at 81%, Godzilla vs. Kong like 75, 76, and then Boss Level like 74, 75. It's like, no, that's accurate. That's pretty much about what I'd rank each of those movies. Like, like right in the 7 to 8 range. Like really solid. Definite recommend. Brutal, violence warning for nobody and boss level. Frank Grillo loses his head more times than I can count. But it also needed to happen too.
And quite a few bomb-type bombs, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially boss level.
Yeah.
The cursing was strong with that one. But, again, it was kind of warranted as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. Hopefully there's not a giant monkey on that boat, or else your boat's going to cease to float.
Or the monkey will defy physics and just jump from boat to boat.
He needed to, though.
He did.
Wasn't
He needed to, though. That was a really cool shot.
Okay, it's funny. Last time I promised, like, I criticized the Snyder Cut for, it feels like they're just taking action figures. And see, that movie is taking a fistful of action figures in each hand and just bumping them together. Bam, bam, bam. Like, that's not fun to watch. Godzilla vs. Kong, you've got your big monkey toy in your bathtub. You've got both hands on it so you can wave its limbs and make it do cool stuff. And then you've got your boats set up in your bathtub. Now you've got to get Kong to hop from one boat to another boat. And then now he's on that boat. And now Godzilla, he bursts out of the water. And then,
The man began to think that, like this balloon, he too was full of helium, because all his hopes and loved ones kept floating away.
Which seems more entertaining. Just from those audible clips.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
heard.
Godzilla versus Kong is the type of action figure action where you break out your connects and build up a bunch of cities and buildings and stuff just to have them be ripped apart and used as weaponry.
Those were the good old days.
That was my childhood.
See, I needed just a little less. Oh, King Kong just finds this random axe. It was a cool axe.
Yeah.
But it was still an axe that glows blue that can also disperse a radioactive beam shot at him in midair. So it kind of reminds me of another movie. I wonder what. Yeah. But if they could replace that with more some of the best stuff from Skull Island, like how King Kong take what's in his environment and turn it into a weapon.
Yeah.
Because I love when things can get creative like that. But in the end, it didn't really matter because it all just looked so cool. All right, so kind of a light and breezy, action-packed episode.
Yeah.
This time. Fitting, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go out there, check out some sweet, sweet action flicks. And we'll see you on the next one.
So long,